Good evening. Welcome to the High Speed Internet Subcommittee meeting for Thursday, November 3rd. Time is 6 o'clock, and this meeting's being conducted in a hybrid fashion. Cindy, can you call off the roll, please, so we could see who's here?
Chris Boyd, Bob Boyd, James, Marlene, Doug Moglen, Ian, and Peter Courier.
Peter's from the Westfield Evening News. So from the Doug, Ian, Marlene, James, Bob, Chris. We're good for a quorum, right? Definitely. All right. Excellent. All right. First order of business is public comment. Anybody have any public comment that they want to share tonight before we get rolling into our main part of our agenda?
I don't. I mean, I don't know if this is the appropriate time for this comment, but in our agenda, avoiding acronyms, like I was wondering, what does STM mean? And then I realized, oh, Southwick Town Meeting. But it would have been a whole bunch easier because for a stranger picking this up, they would not know what STM was.
Point taken. My bad. It's special town meeting.
I'll go one step further. The initial email with the agenda on it, I deleted because there was nothing identifying in it, and I didn't recognize the name. My apologies. So I absolutely deleted it. As a tech, I'm trained to do so. The second one I got, it made it a little bit more obvious what it was about, and that's the only reason I'm here today.
I'm actually looking for the minutes.
The minutes that there wasn't a quorum last meeting, so they're.
I mean, on the agenda, it's approve the minutes from August 9th.
Okay.
I don't have minutes for that meeting.
Did Lisa email you the minutes from the 9th? Those are the ones.
Yes.
Okay, she did those. I did not do those.
So we can actually carry them to the next meeting. I have, they were not distributed to everyone.
Not if you guys didn't get them an email. No, I didn't.
I
Well,
think in the original email that said the staff meeting, the meeting was in the auditorium, and then the second time they didn't come. So I think that could be what happened. I know I ended up getting them, but
I found it email October 18th. Lisa.
yeah.
Yeah. We didn't get them.
Do you want to carry those over to our next meeting, or do you want to talk about them now, or?
There's a lot of meat in there. Yeah.
Why don't we carry them over to the next meeting?
Okay.
Second.
Is that
Okay. Okay, it's a kind of, sure, motion to table by Marlene, seconded by James. I have to do a roll call vote. Doug Moglen, aye. Ian Creswell.
Aye.
Marlene.
Aye.
James.
Aye.
Bob.
Aye.
Christopher.
Aye.
Okay. Next on the agenda is, well, is there any other public comments? Sorry. Awesome. So next on the agenda is the article for the November 15th special town meeting. That came back from council and was put through at our previous, I think 2 meetings ago. We had made a motion to ask the select board to set forth a warrant article to ask the voters of the town of Southwick to authorize the town of Southwick to form a municipal light plant. So I did ask the select board to do so. The select board did do so, and town council has put that article to form. For those that have, let me see if I can, give me 1 second. So much pressure when everybody's watching. I'm hoping you can see it on your screen now. Okay, so that's the article that is going to appear on the special town meeting warrant to be held November 15th at the Southwick Regional School. The meeting itself is going to be held, I believe, in the gymnasium, not our normal auditorium, because the auditorium is booked. But that's the legal process of the article and the legal language necessary for the first of 2 subsequent votes that are needed to form a municipal light plant in the Commonwealth.
Okay. Straightforward. Could we get copies of that?
Sure. I will email it to you right after this meeting. How's that?
Thank you.
Okay. And it's also available on the town meeting
Oh,
homepage, webpage, under town documents. And there's even a video on there with warrant explanations for the 2, there's 2 articles on the warrant that night. That's the only 2 items. So hopefully it'll be a mercifully brief
yeah.
special town meeting.
I guess, I mean, if it's accessible online, I can do that and save you the battle.
Not a problem. Okay. Presentation for special town meeting. Sorry, yeah, special town meeting. I'd like to try to put something on the website prior to the special town meeting. I don't think they're going to have AV equipment at the town meeting, and I don't really think that there's a big need for us to step through this whole process, like in a whole flashy presentation to the folks that are going to come out to the town meeting. I think a quick summation, subject to discussion by this committee, but I think discussion of, just basically what we're doing, what the process is, and then what the next steps are from here. And, some of us or most of us should be familiar with what that process looks like. And if I can, let me just bring this up now. So this is I just put together a rough draft for discussion tonight, and I haven't really flushed it out, but we obviously are going to start running out of time because today's the 3rd of November and this thing is in 12 days. But so what I just wanted to put together was kind of a couple of page handout, front and back, to say what we're doing, where we are, how we got here, and by the way, there's the article. And I'll send out a copy of this after this meeting. I can send out a copy of the presentation itself, and hopefully we can kind of vote to, or just decide that we've got it to a point at which we can have a smaller group just kind of polish it off and have it printed and put on the table for people coming into the special. That's the article itself. The second slide is why. Right, so this is the basic of why we're forming a municipal light plant in the year 2022 and 2023, and why. So not just it allows us access to the infrastructure, provide high-speed internet, and then the process. So here's where we are in the process. I need to add something here about today is step 1 of 20, but the big 2 hurdles here are. We need to get 2 affirmative votes at 2 town meetings. I think I reread the law. I had been saying it's within 2 calendar years, but I think it's no less than 2 months, no more than some number of months. It might be 14 or more months, but whatever. You must have approval from both meetings. So our next step, if we get a positive vote from the meeting on November 15th, then we would bring an identical article forward for the May 2023 annual town meeting. I won't say ATM, annual town meeting.
Also, if you could not use any acronyms, MLP, I think that's of municipal light and power. But if we are writing for the people who will be at the meeting.
Okay.
Okay,
So what happens after, if we're successful with 2 votes, right? We would actually be able to form the MLP, municipal light plant. And then we would then begin the work of finalizing the technical and financial planning necessary to implement high-speed internet.
what does form mean? Actually, form the municipal light plant is that. What does form mean? Incorporate?
Essentially, yes, but you don't incorporate, but you actually set up the structure. You're going to you will have a municipal light board. I didn't want to get into we can certainly come back at a future meeting and talk about it in excruciating detail. I didn't want to go through it on a town meeting floor, but yeah, essentially you form a municipal light board, and then you do all the documentation and filings with all the governmental entities you need to file with as a municipal light plant.
So maybe instead of the word form, you would use the word establish.
Obviously, the first vote doesn't put any requirement that anything further happen. I think it's important to emphasize that point as well. But after the second one, is it now required that we have to create one, or is it still just leaves the option open?
Correct. I mean, if just to go back, to see if the town will vote to authorize the select board to take all necessary and appropriate action to establish and maintain. So, including without limitation, the operation of a telecommunications system and related services. So it basically authorizes your select board then to go and take the next step. You could have 2 votes at a town meeting, and your select board, after they review the money again and say, yeah, we're not doing it, right? I don't believe that that's the case today, right? We've been down this road now a couple of times. We're pretty much, I think, at that point where it has the support of the entire select board, and they voted to bring it forth to a warrant article. But that being said, I think everyone's looking at this one from the perspective of this is a no-cost vote. We need to get 2. This one, vote yes, vote no, whatever. If we vote yes, we got to come back in May and vote again anyway in front of the annual. So, and then we're going to have to start meeting with, if we get the second, where are we here? Sorry. Did I skip ahead? Yeah, I did. We'd have to get, in front of the finance committee and everyone else to try to start understanding, doing some of the math. And I did some math at the end here, which I'll gladly share. But I also noticed that I blew past a slide here. So here's the why. So, and these are all things that we've talked about before. I don't need to, talk to them here as far as just, this is the why we're here and why we started this subcommittee in the first place, and why we've had the meetings we've had, and why we're in front of the voters November 15th to try to establish a municipal light plant.
When you say cord cutters, what does that mean?
Eliminating cable. It's a general term, and I have 2 terms in there that are kind of more industry specific, right? Cord cutters are people who have gotten rid of cable. They literally have cut the cord, and OTT is over the top, meaning you have internet service, but you don't have cable TV.
It's too jargonish to go to the general public with.
Good point.
Need to.
Good point.
To we need to reduce this to like 25 words or less. And what does, so that someone who has not been privy to our conversations will have a sense of,
You could say alternative to cable. Which I've heard a lot of people, even in the 2040 meetings that we've had, there have been people that have remarked in those meetings, I just wish we had an alternative to Comcast cable, so I don't know if that, in terms of the general public, I'm hearing that as the need.
How's that?
Can we call out?
At the risk of sounding too marketing, affordable alternative, I think is probably the better term.
Yeah.
But that's really it. I mean, I have no problem with Comcast service other than the cost of it. So.
Which is what our survey bore out, right? Remember when we did that? For those that were on the
Right.
a year ago, right? The survey bore that out.
Right.
So
Right.
there's your why. Then then that's where we had the process. And then this one. And then I just put a couple of factoids in here. I figured we could add some more, but I didn't know. I've been in town a while and been a selectman for a few years. I didn't know that there were 2,657 utility poles in town of Southwick. And that I did know there was close to 3,700 dwelling units, but those are neat numbers to know. And then these are rough estimates from the sheet from the G&E. This is our target pricing was somewhere in this range of $90 a month for residential internet and what you get for that service. And do want to make a note that with G&E's existing plans that business customers pay more than that. And the rough cost is about $9.275 million. And it would cost about $2,200 a passing or per residential, or what do they call those things? Those PDUs. I get confused because we call PDUs a whole different thing in my line of work. So, but physical dwelling unit,
Is that
$2,200.
Is that in addition to the 9.2?
No,
No,
that's all in. It works out to that number. Is from their sheet that they had shared, the financial stuff that they had shared with us a few meetings ago.
So do you think that might be a little bit confusing, that people might think that it's going to be $9.27 million plus 2,000 per pole for passing?
that was gonna be my question, is that if you would do that 2,200 per passing or per household as a parenthetical after the 9.275.
Yep.
It
Well,
would be self-explanatory.
Well, let's see. If you take 3685.
Times 2,200.
That math doesn't work. That's 8.1 million. So you want me to just take out the $2,200 a passing? Is it little just to keep it simple?
Yeah. Yeah, I think so.
Okay. And then the money. And then this is Doug Moglen's back of the envelope math for now, right? So I want to bring it here for discussion. So none of this is set in stone, but assuming a $9.5 million build out, and the town would eventually have to borrow $7.5 million, and assume we can get a 5% rate for 10 years, the total cost to borrow that is about $9.5 million. To borrow $7.5 million is $9.5 million. So ironically, it's the same dollars, but don't confuse them as the same, because the total cost to borrow is 9.5, but you're going to have to come up with $2 million other dollars along the way. Hopefully $1 million Some of that money is going to come from town funds that we already have on hand, and some is going to come from ratepayers as we buy in, because you're going to have ratepayers paying into the system as you build it out, right? This is exactly the methodology that I took, a more aggressive approach of borrowing more money in this approach than even Westfield did, but just to kind of show some rough math.
I think this is great detail, but the warrant before the special town meeting is just the first step of many.
Yeah, right.
Throw it at 'em, they're gonna say, I'm just gonna say no.
Okay. Good point.
You're gonna have people that are gonna start questioning costs.
Oh, I mean, it's certainly good information to have.
Right. And maybe we could take it out. I hemmed and hawed on it myself because, like I said, a lot of this was just me playing with some numbers just to see how that would all roll together. And also for my own and for this committee's kind of ponderance. So with 3,600 dwelling units, you need 1,300, give or take, dwelling units to sign up just to pay the note. So
I think the point's well taken about, because if there is a possibility of confusion of 9.5 million. The first bullet says 9.5 million, and the third bullet says 9.5 million, and they're two different numbers.
Yep.
They're the same number. So maybe this is too much information at the present time.
okay, we'll just take it out.
I do think that one of the things I recall in all of this is that Whip City, you know, if that would be who we would be dealing with, they said they would basically help us with the whole process. Part of that is seeking funding that is out there.
Yep.
So I think if we were going to put anything out in terms of assuming it's going to be 9.5 million, that also part of what would be happening is that the town would be exploring the possibility of getting any funding that exists to offset the cost.
Absolutely.
So that,
I mean, we had already talked about, one was the community compact grant. And then I don't know if anybody's been reading the news this past week. I know at least one member of the committee who's not here tonight sent me a snippet of, why can't we have this money? There was some federal infrastructure money out there for very rural broadband. I've made some inquiries. I don't have an answer yet, but it's worth the question, right? So yes, exactly. Yeah, and I don't know that we're going to have to borrow all of it. Like I said, I was just doing some back of the envelope math to say, okay, what if we did have to bear a lot of it or most of it? You know, I'm not, you know, they were talking about an easy peasy grant for basically a fiber backbone. You know, that was, I think, close to $250,000, right? That would be leveraged in this service as well. That most communities that have done this have already gotten that grant or can get that grant. And then, you know, there's the ARPA money, there's some other funding sources available. And then what other grants, and before we go and borrow money, what other funding sources are available? And we've got to start that legwork. That's all got to come after we get at least through one vote at town meeting. I don't want to start cycling everybody up to do all this other work. But I also wanted to come back to the board after we finish this part, is to kind of have a discussion about that and say, hey, if we get past November 15th and we get a yes, which, you know, I'm optimistic that we will, based on what we've seen so far, from the numbers and from the viability of this project, and feedback from other, you know, from folks in town, but people need to come out and vote for it as well. Do we start the rest of the planning to coincide with the May town meeting? You know, what do we, you know, get the town attorney involved and other folks to figure out what's the rest of the process going to look like, so we don't just wait until May, then go to town meeting again, get another vote, and then start all the rest of the process, right? We could always go and get start doing applications for grants and all this other stuff. We don't get them, we could always turn we don't get the vote, we can turn the grants down. But if we get them, we kind of hit the ground running, and any money you have on hand kickstarts the project.
I'm just thinking if you're going to.
Yeah,
Distribute information on what the total build out cost is, it might be attractive to people to see that part of this is gonna be. The process is gonna be looking for existing funding, so that they don't think the town somehow is gonna have to come up with the 9.5 million, and that'll end up feeling like too expensive. to
Sure.
them.
Well, and
I
that's-
think I would
Go ahead,
maybe
Ian.
lose this slide, and yeah, I think I would maybe lose this slide. And if you wanted to put something along that lines in where we put in the total build out, where we'll be seeking, grants and so forth to offset some of the costs on that prior slide where we actually have the initial 9.5 million listed. Right there. Maybe a footnote on that. Bingo. Yep. I think that gets it done, and it's not a too much information situation. I like the yada yada.
Flush it out later. I don't want to bore everybody to tears tonight. But yeah,
Oh,
you're right.
God.
I'll just take it out. But and just before I delete it, just so that you have the rough math, I mean, just for everyone's edification, I just took a look at it and said, okay, if you take that, if you get, based on a rolling number of customers coming in, but with that number of dwelling units, net, if you're billing $90 a month, you're paying, I think I use 35, paying Westfield G&E or your provider $35 a month. So you net the balance and you take the 3685, you need 36% of them to,
Sure.
36%
I
of
have one
those dwelling
question on
units
that.
to pay you $90 a month. That includes no business customers. So if you
Right.
get that, you are paying off your debt in 10 years. If you do better than that, you pay off your debt faster. That's all.
Right. So my one question, dwelling units, as a multifamily property count as, say, a two-family house, count as 2 dwelling units, or does that count as 1 in these numbers? Just curious.
Does anyone remember? Someone asked them that question at the meeting, and now I don't remember the answer.
I don't recall it.
I don't recall either.
Ian, I'll
Sorry,
get back to you
Alaska.
on that. I don't want to give you the wrong answer. I'll get back to you on that.
No. Just curious. Yep, thanks.
No problem. And that's all I had. So does anyone have anything else that we should add to this? I'll kill this slide for now.
I think just the emphasis that a yes vote is there's no commitments long term.
Did we put anything in there, saying that the cost could be offset by customers getting on, the system in the beginning?
I see where you're going. Yeah, right. Yeah, because that's going to be the first thing everybody looks at and goes, anybody looks at who's going to be skeptical, and they're going to be like, oh, wait a minute.
Right.
How much?
Like that?
We can't see it because, our pictures are in front of it.
Build out plans so that paying customers.
Build out plans so that paying customers offset further borrowing needs.
Yeah, I think they at least plant to see.
I would eliminate. I guess. It sounds like. Somehow. The way that last point, it's a good point, but I think. It needs,
Phased rollout, maybe?
is that, it says further borrowing, so we've already borrowed the 9.5 million. All right, so that's what this is saying is that this would appraisal.
I know what he means.
Not further borrowing.
How about, there you go. I was gonna say minimize, but reduce works.
We don't need to borrow the whole 9.5 million at once, do we?
No, sir. That's the whole point is, and that's why I did big math, and you know, I get it was a scary slide, but I did big math because I figured it can only get, you know, I've been doing this a while, but it could only get better than that, right? I did a real worst case scenario, borrow all the money except what I know we have on hand and build it. If we can start taking in a couple of $1 million in revenue, and granted, you got to do it $90 at a time. It takes a while to get to $1 million via $90 a piece, but you get the revenue going, and then you can use that ongoing revenue to fund existing build out. And this is exactly what Westfield's done, right? They're using their existing revenue base to retire debt and finish their rollout. And they're still not done up in Westfield. If you go up north of the Pike, they're still not done. And I don't know, you know, we haven't really even put together we haven't even started to put together a plan by which how we would do this in phases and what that schedule looks like. You know, it's certainly not going to be a 6-month plan, right? It's probably a 5-year plan to get this in and done. And it's 5 years from start of construction.
Right, and I think we had talked about doing some logical areas, basically where there's access points right on the border, or in the case of the trunk pulled down to the center of town. That's an obvious one. It's already there.
You come right through the center. Right.
Yep.
Or you come off, I mean, another logical too, and again, this is all pie in the sky until the technical work is done, but you come off the rail trail and come up the Fernwood, Burnwood, Birchwood, that whole area, right? Because the density's there, the poles are there, and you're near the rail trail, and the internet exists on the rail trail today. The G&E fiber exists on the rail trail today. That's a logical one to come and pick off and get a gazillion customers in short order. Then again, we also the town spent, what did we spend? $600,000 on a sewer design for that neighborhood that got turned down at town meeting. So, and we didn't even, there was just the design was 600 grand, but that's a logical, and one logical way to look at it is how can you get density quickly and get the subscriber base started, and go from there. So what should we add? Anything additional we should add?
Couple of more yadas, but other than that, I'm good. No, I'm all about it. Let's keep it simple,
Okay.
Get the base introduction there. It'll spark some questions, but that's okay.
Does anybody want to volunteer to work with me on this over the next, maybe even over the weekend or something? We could do it online. Just to kind of polish this up and get it ready to send to the town hall to have them print it and have it ready for us at town meeting. And it's got to be a little subcommittee, because if we have more than 4, can't have more than 4, it would, we've got the substance in general. We're not looking to change the content, just to kind of touch it up, edit it, and make it nice.
If nobody else can, Doug, I can probably make some time. I've got a bunch going on this weekend, but I could probably carve out an hour or two. It shouldn't take long.
Nope, I don't think so.
I can help as well.
Sold. Okay. Thank you very much. I'll get with you and we'll set up some time, that works for all 3 of us to polish it up. And this should be good content. I mean, is everyone planning to be at the town meeting on Tuesday the 15th?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, I'll go out of my way to be there.
Awesome. Anyone want to take the over under on how many people are going to be at the town meeting on November 15th? And the side bet of what time the meeting ends?
Joe said he'll be there.
50.
50?
I say 30 to 50.
Well, I hope it's more than that.
What's the minimum we?
I think we need 50 for a quorum.
Do we?
Or actually, it's less. It's been reduced. I think that, well, the pandemic stuff's all over. I don't even know what the quorum is anymore. That's the moderator's job. Okay, I can stop sharing this. Did someone say Dee Dee walked in?
Right here, how you doing?
Oh, how you doing? Hey, this is just like the opposite of the other night,
Yes.
right? You were there and I was
Yeah.
on Zoom. No, wait, this is exactly the same as the other night. You're there and I'm on Zoom. All right. Christ. Where were we? Let me get back to the agenda. Okay, I carried a previous one on there to discuss, and I think it's a little premature right now, but once we get past the town meeting, and as we head into winter, I think we could actually form a couple little subgroups to kind of have some additional conversations with alternative suppliers besides Westfield Gas and Electric. I mean, Westfield Gas and Electric makes a very compelling argument. They've done this before. They're our neighbor. We have tons of agreements with the city of Westfield. But I think it would be the right thing to do the due diligence and reach back out to, I know we had talked to Go NetSpeed at one time. And then there's another one, I think it's called Brightspeed. Is that the one that's doing the service in Agawam? But at least to go and have a conversation with them and have them come and potentially present and have a subgroup report back to say, hey, these guys are interested, not interested, this is what it would be or what they can offer and what they would do. And then that's the only other thing I carried on the agenda. So I kind of can open up the floor here for any other discussion that you wanted to have tonight. And see where we go from there. Thoughts?
I think that's a good idea.
No, I agree. Anytime you make any kind of significant investment, be it in software, hardware, anything else, you're usually going to at least talk to a few different vendors and make an intelligent decision at the very least. So yeah, I think it's a great idea to explore that through the winter. Obviously, assuming we get a thumbs up at the meeting on the 15th. So
Correct. And I just think, I'm cautiously optimistic for November 15th. I think it's going to be, there's just been enough talk about it. And, even in the master plan, I probably should add something in the prezzo about that. Master plan calls that out as a huge topic of discussion under the master plan of things that the town is lacking or the things that the town needs for the future. So we'll carry that through.
Doug, I think that's a key point to add in the handout, that this was a high priority issue on the 2040 plan.
Right.
So that it's not like it's coming out of the blue.
Yeah, I think I had I'm not sharing my screen, but the why was like, I'm going to add it under that why slide where, internet has become a necessary utility like electricity.
Actually, I would mention that there was an overwhelming response, a positive response on the survey that was conducted on such and such a date. And then subsequent to that, in the 2040 planning process, once again, it was a high priority item to have high-speed internet here in Southwick for residential and commercial users.
Absolutely. I put it on that Y slide and we'll touch it up this weekend and make sure we get it correct. You know, that it was called out in the master plan 2040 survey and that it was also in the high-speed survey we did in 2019, even before the pandemic, of how important we thought it was going to be. Awesome.
So Doug, this is a question, but on the Go Net Speed, I thought that they were pretty much providing service only in Connecticut, or weren't they the group that was mainly
Yep.
building up?
And I just put those names on there because I had a conversation with Go Net Speed, but we offered them a deal, if we recall, that they weren't at all interested to do, right? When we said, look, you want to have it, we'll give you the keys. You come build it, you own it, you bill us, right? And we'll just agree to some contractual price limits around what you're going to pay. They don't have the capital to do it either, right? They're doing it the same way that a lot of other entities are doing it. They have gone into some very dense cities and towns in Connecticut, and they've expended some capital and built their own infrastructure, and are selling service in those towns and not being sold by the town itself, West Hartford and a few others. But I offer them, hey, here you go, build it out, and you put up the 8 million and you own it. And they took a hard pass at the time. I talked to the president of the company. So that was back before we'd even gone back to the selectmen the first time. It was one of our first, right around the time of our first meetings. But perhaps it's a different story now. Perhaps things are have changed. We'll go back and revisit it. And I believe the second one that's on there, I lost my place. The Brightspeed. Somebody either sent that to me or it was the one that they're doing in Agawam. But it's another potential provider of this type of service. Bob, are you familiar with either of them?
Now, we have, was Lumens, I forget what our provider is in Sturbridge, but
Agawam is Hotelco, by the way.
Oh, really?
It's OTELCO. I just according to an article in Mass Live, April 2021, they were planning then to build a fiber optic system in Agawam to compete with Comcast.
When was the date on that?
April of last year.
It's about the right time. Yep. So, okay, well, we'll add that to the list. OTELCO.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Yep.
Great. Any other public comments or discussion for tonight before we we'll set a target for our next meeting sometime in December, see how we did in got Thanksgiving, kind of the week after November shot. So how about early December-ish? Thursday
That should
something?
work.
Is Thursdays okay for everybody? That works very good for Cindy. So, and is it a kind of an okay evening for everyone else? If we give you enough notice?
Yeah, typically, yep.
Okay. Anything else? Anyone want to make a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
I'll second it.
Okay. Cindy, can you call a roll call vote to adjourn, please?
Chris Boyd, Bob Boyd, James, Marlene, Doug Moglen, and Ian Russwell.
Okay, all in favor? Aye.
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 Fantastic.